Welcome to Chapter 12, Simple Totals. And after what we've been through in the last 4 modules, with inner joins, data warehouses, outer joins, and subqueries, Chapter 12 is going to seem very simple. But hold on. If you try to add too much to your statements, you're going to see a whole new class of error messages. Stick with simple for now. We'll handle group by and halving in the next module. At the end of this learning segment, you should be able to explain the purpose of an aggregate function, describe how each of the 6 basic functions operate, use an aggregate function in a select and a where clause. The aggregate functions we'll be looking at in this chapter are count all, count, sum, average, max, and min. Aggregate functions allow you to calculate a single value from the rows in a result set or from the values returned by a value expression. The basic syntax for aggregates are the function name, and distinct is optional, the value expression, and an alias. An alias is beneficial because in SQL Server, your columns will not have names otherwise. We'll start with the count all columns function. What the count all, it's the asterisk in parentheses does is it retrieves all columns in the rows that are selected and then returns a count of the number of rows. There are just a couple of examples from your book where one is just counting the number of students and the other is putting a literal value in one of the columns and then the count of the students in the other column to make the results a little more readable. Count will ignore nulls, so it will give you the count of the values that are actually in that particular column. If we want to count unique values, we can add distinct within the parentheses. We can count with a filter. We can use the where clause as a filter to return only a specific number of records. We can compute the total with the sum. It will calculate the totals for non-null numeric values and return a final total. We can also filter with the where clause. We can also use distinct inside the parentheses with sum. We can find the mathematical mean value with average. Make sure that you're using AVG, not average. I know that some applications you are allowed to write out average, but not here. You need AVG. You can again use distinct inside the parentheses with the average function, so that instead of doing an average on all values, you're doing an average only on distinct values. We can find the max. Max works with any data type. It's going to return the largest value, and that will be alphabetically or numerically. Distinct doesn't work with max or min. We can also use the where clause to filter, and min does just the opposite of max. It'll return the smallest value, and that also works with all data types. And also we can filter min with the where clause. And we can use more than one function. Here's an example of using both min and max in the select statement. We can use aggregate functions as filters. As a matter of fact, we did this earlier in subqueries. Here you see that we're calculating the average contract price and comparing it to the contract price of a specific record. We can also use aggregate functions in subqueries to limit the results. Because an aggregate function returns a single value, we place it inside a subquery within the where clause. This is something that we've already done. We did it in Chapter 11. Yes, this is a short chapter, and you've seen many of these basic aggregate functions already in the work that we've done up to this point. However, this is a great review to get us ready to get into more complex grouping that we'll be doing in chapters 13 and 14.